making her way to the mic. They start dimming the lights, you start feeling alright. From Birmingham, home of the Teddy Longs and the Ruben Studders. More once you discover. For all of the lovers of Whitney Houston and Roman Reigns. For all of the lovers of Mickey James and Marvin Gaye. For all of the lovers of Sasha Banks, Janelle Monáe, Silk, Sonic, and Paige. Allow me to say, look, I just found a place, sweet escape, every one of us. I was kinda late, I just made it off the struggle bus. Walking by the faith, cause I know it's right in front of us. Yo, I ain't with the hate, gotta focus on what's great. Ladies and gentlemen, Steph Hardy is on the air. Had to drop a couple bars just to make you all aware. So, sit back, relax, enjoy the show. You know I go by Joe or the rest of the flow.
Hey y'all, welcome to the 101st episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. I missed you guys so much, but your girl had to take a little bit of a break to prepare for the Alabama Music Awards and to just figure out what's next after 100 episodes. So, thank you for your love and support. So, of course, I got your news and gossipage on this episode. And, of course, I also have predictions for SummerSlam and what I enjoyed in wrestling this week. And I talk a little bit about the Vince McMahon retirement saga. So, please sit back, relax, and listen to this episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. Thank you for the love, y'all. Alright, so now we're in news and gossip-ish. There is so much that has taken place over the past couple of weeks since I've been on break. Your girl needed some time to rest after going in and out between New York and so many things with the Alabama Music Awards and all of the above. I just needed some time to rest and relax. But in the midst of me resting and relaxing, wrestling kept wrestling and stuff kept popping off, and child, Lord, oh my God. But I'm gonna talk a whole lot about the first part that really popped off a little bit later, but I gotta get into what's going on currently right now. So in the news, WrestleMania in 2024 is going to be in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This announcement was made this week. So they announced Wednesday that WrestleMania 40 is going to be taking place on April the 6th and the 7th in 2024 at the Lincoln Financial Field in Philadelphia. Now, in a press release, Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney said, "We are proud to welcome WWE fans from around the world to Philadelphia to be a part of the historic 40th WrestleMania in 2024. The week-long series of events will help put a global spotlight on our great city while also generating a major impact for our local economy." Also, the news report from ABC6 up there said that there will also be a Hall of Fame ceremony at the Wells Fargo Center, and usually that the Hall of Fame occurs the night before WrestleMania. And of course, there will be fan events held throughout the week at the Pennsylvania Convention Center. So, also there was a statement released by Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau President and CEO Greg Karen. He said, "Philadelphia is excited to host WrestleMania for the first time in 25 years. The combination of Philadelphia's passionate fans joining forces with WWE's worldwide fan base will create an incredible electricity throughout the city for the events at Lincoln Financial Field, Wells Fargo Center, and the Pennsylvania Convention Center." Now, of course, it was also reported that this isn't the first time WrestleMania has been held in Philadelphia. WrestleMania 15 in 1999 held the iconic match between The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin in the main event for the WWE Championship. Now, the Lincoln Financial Field is reported to hold more than 67,000 people. So this is going to be really cool. Congratulations to the city of Philadelphia, for getting this major thing. And the fact that it will be the 40th one is a pretty big deal too. I wonder if WWE will do that thing that they did for WrestleMania 20 when it was such a huge deal that they sort of put it all over their clothing and all over everything else, and they really let you know that WrestleMania is 20 years old and this is it. But either way, I think it's really really cool that that's going on. So congratulations to Philadelphia, and I hope you guys enjoy yourselves. I wonder if any of you guys who are listening are going to be going to Philadelphia in 2024. I'm still trying to get my coins together for 2023, like for California next year. So yeah, Philadelphia, that's pretty far, but at the same time, I thought New York was pretty far, and I still found a way to go to that. So hey, whatever. Congratulations though. Also in the news, we had the news about Triple H being made head of creative in the wake of Vince McMahon retiring as chairman, CEO, and I guess a creative director of WWE. So it was reported that Triple H had basically taken over creative, and he posted a picture of himself basically running Raw before Raw was set to go on the air on Monday, and everybody shared it and thought that, you know, and basically felt, and it was a feeling of like everybody was feeling refreshed and happy with what is supposed to take place with Triple H as head of creative at this point. Everybody was really pumped about it. They're just like, oh my god, like Raw might be different, and you know, wrestling as a whole might be different since Vince is, you know, of course retired, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But yeah, like it's just, with Triple H in charge, I just think it'll be really interesting to see what will take place, because I know Raw this week felt a little bit smoother in terms of, you know, how the show normally goes within a 3 to 4 hour basis. It was pretty refreshing with some of the stuff that we saw happen, but no one really knows if specifically he was in charge of that or someone else was, but at the same time it did feel a little bit different. So I do look forward to him being made head of creative. With that being said, I am looking forward to how SummerSlam is going to happen tonight. There's a lot that he's inherited that I'm more than sure hasn't been the most favorable to a lot of fans, but hopefully, you know, he'll make it all make sense. Him and the writing team will all make it make sense, and then it'll be clear, and then we'll see that we're in a new era, but I'll talk more about that later. Also in the news, we have Tony Khan, of course, the CEO and founder of AEW, sort of talking, you know, a lot of stuff about basically he was just talking a lot of stuff about superstars wanting to possibly leave AEW and go back to WWE since Triple H is in charge of creative, in a sense, because a lot of the people who did leave NXT or left the WWE did go on to AEW, and it's just like, and of course Triple H wasn't in charge because he was going through his health issues and stuff like that, but now that he has, you know, more power with what he has to do as head of creative, a lot of people were sort of running with these rumors that he might, you know, that a lot of these superstars might want to come back to WWE, but it was pretty clear that Tony Khan didn't take too kindly to that. So basically, he said on a podcast, I believe he said it on Busted Open Radio, that some of the narratives I've seen every day for the last week are really amusing me. I've got people signed here for 5 years, and people think just because the guy, the CEO, the chairman, the head of creative, those positions change in the competition, people I have 5-year contracts with are just going to magically switch teams. And he also continued by saying, he blasted the narrative created by so-called wrestling writers who he claims are pushing the idea because some of his performers had success during their runs in WWE. And then he went on to praise the NFL media, but then again turned his attention to the wrestling media, saying that there are people with big followings and high journalism standards that can be convinced to write anything. And it's funny that he said that, because there's a huge sentiment that a lot of people feel that Tony Khan has basically paid off a lot of wrestling journalists to say good things about AEW and basically slam and lambast WWE for any mistake that they make, or for something that WWE does is actually pretty cool, but then they want to bash it just for the sake of beefing up AEW. So I think that's funny that Tony Khan would say that. That's hysterical. And then on top of that, it seems like he's really bent out of shape with what people are saying with those rumors about people wanting to go back to WWE since Triple H is in charge of creative. And yeah, it may be true that you have signed these people, you know, for 5 years, but if they're not happy with what's going on in AEW, then they can very well sit out their contracts the way a lot of wrestlers have done that in the past with WWE and then move on somewhere else. Like, don't just think that just because you're the new girl in town that wouldn't nobody want to walk out on you if they're not happy. Like, stop that. Like, I just think it's funny how Tony Khan has a tendency to think that because, you know, he tries to have these personal relationships with some of these people, with some of these wrestlers, that he's sort of obligated to them. And he also gives off the impression that, oh, well, you know, my girl is the girl, AEW is the girl, and no one else should want to go anywhere else. No, sir. Like, if they really want to leave, they can leave. Like, this is business, and these wrestlers ultimately have to do what makes sense to them in you know, and what benefits them and what's in their interest. So if they want to leave, or if they want to set out their contract until they can go somewhere else, they can do that. Like, there's no special treatment for you, sir. But also, as a leader, he should be, you know, chilled out and not trying to focus so much on what people want from the want for the competition or whatever so much, and just focus on what makes AEW special. And I feel like I say that a lot about him, which I think is a pretty bad sign. But yeah, he should really focus on what makes AEW more special and pay more attention to the talent that, you know, helped him build the company, as opposed to focusing a lot on the ex-WWE people who he tries to give a lot to a lot of the time. But yeah, and he's also pretty petty too, because did y'all see that tweet he made when Vince McMahon announced his retirement? He called himself the longest tenure chairman in wrestling history. Sweetheart, no, you're not. Like, you've only been doing this for 3, maybe 4 years at this point. Stop it. Like, you didn't have to say anything. Like, you really could have just ate your food, but everybody basically roasted him for that. So I'm not gonna do it here, but Jesus Christ, like, Tony really just needs to chill. Like, he really always needs to chill. And considering of him, and speaking of him needing to chill, how about we talk about the fact that Jonathan Gresham, you know, was ready to pop off on him, or probably did pop off on him, because he wasn't happy with where he was with his standing in AEW / Ring of Honor. So according to Fightful, Jonathan Gresham met with Tony Khan before Death Before Dishonor, that's the Ring of Honor pay-per-view that just took place, and was already more heated than usual regarding the direction of his booking and character. But while their dialogue had been expected to stay private, details couldn't help but spill into the locker room as the conversation increased in volume, with even the building security being able to hear it. And Fightful's previous report had stated that Gresham had cussed out Tony Khan. And the report further says that Gresham reportedly had contacts within AEW in the form of QT Marshall and Sanjay Dutt, and they had been a contact for him within the company. Despite that, Gresham was frustrated with the creative direction of his character. Specifically, he had been against the idea of turning heel, and more broadly, he had a vision for his creative direction that Khan did not share. And then Gresham had been told that the creative changes go through Khan, but he was unable to meet with Khan until just a few hours before the event on Saturday. Now, Jonathan Gresham will go on to lose his Ring of Honor championship to Claudio Castagnoli, formerly known as Cesaro in WWE. But a lot of people said that while watching the event, they could tell that something could have been off with Jonathan Gresham, that he had a look on his face like he really was not happy with the direction of, you know, losing the title, or with the direction of his character. But I did find it interesting that he did turn heel a couple of weeks back on AEW Rampage. And he turned heel on Lee Moriarty, and then of course they fought each other, and then he joined Tully Blanchard Enterprises, which I also thought was really weird, because honestly, I really feel that black people and Blanchards just shouldn't go together. And that's just the truth of the situation. because ever since what happened with Tessa Blanchard, even though I know Tessa and Tully are two totally different people, it's just the principle to me. Like, no, like, I would stay far away from anybody with that last name in wrestling. So that's just how I feel. But they got together, and I guess, but behind the scenes, Jonathan wasn't cool with that. But at the same time, with him requesting his AEW and ROH release, it's not like he's really in danger of anything, because he has his own wrestling promotion, Terminus, in Atlanta. There's always the possibility of him, you know, going back to Impact Wrestling and being full-time there, because, you know, they have great wrestling over there. Plus, not to mention, he'd be there with his wife, the Impact Knockouts champion, Jordynne Grace. Or he could go to WWE, because for all we know, this weekend, Jordynne Grace did take pictures saying she was in Nashville. For all we know, he could have tried out with them at the SummerSlam tryouts. But you never really know. So yeah, I just hope the best for him, but honestly, he deserves better than that. And it's, you know, and it almost speaks to the idea that I just mentioned earlier about Tony Khan sort of beefing up and showing a little bit of more favoritism towards ex-WWE people. But you know, it's just really hard, but I really hope that Jonathan Gresham does find the best for himself. And then there's also something else that bothers me about Ring of Honor being bought by AEW too, and it's the fact that Shane Taylor Promotions isn't there anymore. And that's something that a lot of people online, including people who are contemporaries with me, have brought up. And it's just the idea that, you know, the Shane Taylor Promotions isn't there anymore, and they were a really big part of ROH in the like, not in the beginning, but over the past couple of years, and now they're not there, and it's just like, huh? But, you know, struggle bus. So, in the midst of that, there is more to talk about in wrestling, and something that disturbed me that I did find was the fact that there was a report about, well, actually, no, I won't talk about that yet. I want to talk about how Linda McMahon basically dodged any questions about Vince McMahon's resignation and hush money scandal. So apparently Linda McMahon was attending an event for policy. It was called the America First Policy Institute, which she serves as its chairman, which is her latest job in a political organization that for a man that will not be addressed here. So a reporter asked Linda McMahon about her husband's recent resignation from WWE, which came amidst investigations into NDAs and hush money payments he paid to women who he had affairs with. So it was interesting because, of course, you know, with her being legally married to Vince, she has also served as the president and CEO for WWE for nearly 30 years until, of course, she retired to sort of follow her heart into policy and politics. But she dodged the questions and said that she's not going to talk about Vince and WWE. I'm here to talk about AFPI. And the only comment that she made, excuse me, that she offered about the event was basically that, well, you know what? He'll just be deciding on how he's going to spend his free time. I think that's a good thing. And she really just didn't want to talk about it. And she's well within her rights to not want to talk about it at all, because, I mean, I'm pretty sure that's a sensitive situation. It's like, there's all of these reports coming out that your husband was a thought pocket. And you were married with this man, and you built this life with this man. You had 2 children with this man. And all of this is coming out. It's not really, like, the greatest thing. Like, it's not the greatest thing to happen right now. So anything that she tries to do, you know, in terms of her business, you know, she should just be allowed to do it without being, you know, thrown questions into her personal life. So, yeah, I hope Linda McMahon's doing okay, you know, in the midst of all of this. I know it has to be hard. But yeah, I just feel so sorry for her, because that's just a hot mess. So, in speaking about a hot mess, I found out that Kevin Dunn, who who worked backstage for WWE in terms of their writing team and being a executive producer for WWE. An actor named Freddie Prinze Jr. Let me not just say an actor named Freddie Prinze Jr. like I don't know who this man is. Freddie Prinze Jr., who is an actor and former creative team member of WWE, told his own wrestling story on his podcast called Wrestling with Freddie about and his experience working with Kevin Dunn and his long-term philosophy on women's champions. So Freddie said you could pitch for like 20 minutes and Kevin Dunn would be like, well, I don't think she's pretty. And all of a sudden 6 weeks of story would just be gone. Our champ has to be pretty. And it was also reported that this isn't really a rumor in its own right, but it supports a report made by The Hard Way's Leslie Lee III that Dunn once said that 6-time women's champion Becky Lynch was not attractive enough to be women's champion. And the article also claimed that he disliked her accent so much that he planned to give her less speaking time on TV just to not hear her voice as much. And that, and also Lee revealed a 2016 tweet made by Becky Lynch and how that tweet could have been a subliminal message directed at Kevin Dunn. And that tweet said, and I quote from Becky, "For those who didn't understand my accent, what I said was SmackDown, Alexa, Glasgow, face, slapped off her." And this disappoints me. And it disappoints me that someone backstage, but then again, it sounds pretty par for the course, when you hear the stories from the likes of Mickie James and so many other people who have talked about, you know, how women's wrestling isn't valued backstage as much as it should be, or as much as they try to, you know, make it seem like it is. Saying that a women's champion has to be pretty, it's just really disgusting. And I'm wondering how many women did he say this about, you know, in terms of them being women's champion or divas champion or something like that. Like, how often did he get away with saying trash like that? It's like you're writing all this creative stuff, you know, for this woman who you believe should be on television, and then it gets shot down because you don't think she's pretty enough? And then it makes sense because even AJ Lee put in her book one time, you know, that during her time in WWE, there were executives who were saying, you know, that you have to be effable in order to be a star. A women's star in WWE. And that's just absolutely ridiculous, because it shows that when it comes to women backstage, it's like they tend to center attractiveness over athleticism. And if you have some athleticism, that's fine, but mostly you have to be attractive. And that's absolutely ridiculous, because I honestly feel like the WWE product and its women, every woman who watches WWE doesn't look like a supermodel, doesn't look like a Victoria's Secret model, doesn't look like an Instagram girl. Like, they look like regular people like me, like someone who is really thick and very dark skinned. And I just really feel like that should reflect, you know, like the women's division should reflect the reality of what women look like. And you shaming women for how they look and thinking that they shouldn't have a chance at at any one of the women's titles is just ridiculous, and that's ugly, and that just says a lot about you as a man. Like, women are not here for your enjoyment. Like, we are not here for the sole purpose and pleasure and consumption of men. Like, we are here for our own purposes. And me being a champion it should have to do with the fact that I've worked for it, and because I have the charisma and I have what it takes to make it in the business, and not just solely because of how I look. And looks, you know, help, but they shouldn't be the only factor that determines whether or not you should get a push. And that's just how I feel about it. And I hope that Kevin Dunn is no longer working for the company after that point, because that's just ridiculous and that's just gross. But I'm going to go into that a little bit, like, right now, because I have to talk about how I feel about this Vince McMahon situation. Now, of course, when Vince McMahon announced his retirement last Friday, it sent shockwaves throughout the entire wrestling fandom and even outside of the wrestling fandom, because even if you don't watch wrestling on the regular, you know who Vince McMahon is, and he's just been tied to WWE, you know, for over 60 years at this point, you know, basically almost his whole life. Excuse me. So, for those who may or may not know, Vince McMahon was involved in a scandal involving him possibly paying off multiple women that he had affairs with in the workplace, and he paid them off close to maybe $12 million. And the Wall Street Journal released it. Now, mind you, this started coming out like towards the beginning of June, and then into the middle of June as well, because he was still popping up on television even as these accusations were coming out. Like, because I'll never forget watching him make that little bit of a speech he did on that SmackDown episode, and I was in Times Square watching it with Keith Mack, shout out to him, and Danny and Janelle from the HR from Jobber Tears. Like, I will never forget that. Like, he was acting like everything was normal and that all of this was just going to pass by. And he kept popping up on Raw and kept popping up on SmackDown. But then towards July, another report came out, and child, it's starting, you could tell that it's starting to get really rough now. Like, you can really tell that it's getting to a point to where it can't be denied. Like, this man really may have really done this. So I didn't know exactly what was going to happen to Vince. I thought maybe he would quietly disappear and we wouldn't see him anymore. But there was nothing about his retirement that was quiet. He really retired. He posted it on Twitter, and I was at work when I got news. I was getting ready to actually leave work to get some pie, and and basically I saw it on my phone, and I called my boyfriend, and I was like, is this real? And he was just like, yeah, it's real. I just saw it too. And he only found out like maybe 5 minutes before I did. And I was just like, what the heck? And then my dad texted me, and I was like, what the heck? And then basically wrestling Twitter was on fire, like it tends to be all the time whenever stuff like this happens. And I'll never forget looking at this woman named Erica, who is a new wrestling fan on Twitter, who said that, I know wrestling can be pretty dramatic, but it's pretty clear that in real life right now, shit is shitting. And I'm sorry to say that, but that's what she said in the tweet. And it was the most hilarious, but most accurate, like the most accurate statement as to what was happening over the few hours since he made that announcement. It was crazy. And so every rumor that came out. They thought Brock left. They tried to get him to come back, but then he did come back, and a lot of people felt like the person who released that information about Brock Lesnar storming out of WWE after finding out Vince retired, you know, like, they thought he was lying, and it was just like, and they were roasting him, they were roasting Brock, they were roasting Vince. Everybody was just getting roasted. It was just a free-for-all. It was hysterical. But what I will say is this, though Vince McMahon, you know, basically is the reason why the wrestling business is, or at least WWE is the way it is, and it's sort of like the standard of where wrestlers, you know, want to work and be, to a certain degree, because I can't even sit here and pretend that I wouldn't want to work for WWE, you know, someday. But at the same time, it's like, and then he turned into $1 billion, you know, organization. You know, like, he's done stuff, you know, for wrestling that can't be denied. But at the end of the day, we can't overlook the reasons why he's in all this trouble and in all this hot water. He did what it seems like a lot of men in power tend to do. They abuse it. And you build your career, you know, all of your entertainment stuff, you know, you make all this money, and yeah, you have your family, but somehow or another you feel the need to use your power and abuse it by having affairs and or possibly, having sexual harassment claims, possibly, having sexual assault claims, all of these things. And then you paid these women off expecting them not to say anything for the rest of your life, and you expected to get away scot-free. No, that's not cool. And I feel like I'd say this on a lot of wrestling platforms, but I feel like it needs to be said again. The business of wrestling owes women everything. They really do, because we try so hard to love this thing knowing full well it wasn't fully made for us to begin with. It was mainly a man sport from the jump. And whenever women tried, they would always have to face so many obstacles in order to want to wrestle and do it in a fair and safe space. And then it's even worse if you're a woman of color, because you're having to face sexism and racism on top of that. And then you're also facing body shaming and so many other different things on top of that as well, from the older days and even up until now. And you also are surrounded by men who don't see you as equal, because they feel like women are just made for their consumption, like I mentioned earlier with Kevin Dunn. And it's just not fair, because all these women want to do whenever they come on television every week, or even just wrestle in the indies every week, all they want to do is put on a great show for their audience and do what they absolutely love and feel safe doing it, and feel like they're not treated like objects for it and treated like trash for it. And whenever you put any type of darkness into the world, that darkness is going to come back to you. And that's what's going on with Vince. And honestly, I can't feel sorry for him. I don't feel sorry for him. Yeah, you may have done great things, but two things can be true at the same time. You can do great things out in public and be a trash person in private. So you're being dragged through the mud for all of the stuff that you did with these women. I don't feel sorry for you. And a new day has arisen, and now WWE is now being taken over by Stephanie McMahon, who is the chairwoman of WWE, and she is also co-CEO with Nick Khan, who was the president of WWE. Now they're both co-CEOs. And Triple H is the head of creative. And we're living in a post, not a completely post-McMahon era, but a post-Vince McMahon era. And hopefully, that means good changes to come, because even Triple H was at the tryouts for SummerSlam this weekend, or at least yesterday and today, and he was saying good things about how he wants, he wants to hear everybody's ideas. He wants everything to be open and positive. Like, he wants to make it a collaborative effort as opposed to it's my way or the highway type of thing. And that's something that I can appreciate from him. And I just hope that he's doing okay health-wise, and that he's not as stressed out or whatever, because, he had a health condition that almost took him out of here. And I'm just hoping that he's not stressed out to the point to where it's, messing him up. But I am feeling better, and I'm feeling a little bit, revived. I love wrestling, but I am feeling a little bit more revived knowing that they're in charge of it and that something new might happen. So there's that. We just have to move forward, past this one person's mistake, because none of those wrestlers in WWE deserve, that blowback from Vince McMahon's mistakes, because they didn't make those mistakes. He did. So he's retired. He's gone. Bye-bye. Yeah. That's just kind of how I feel about it. It was shocking, because I've never known a world with WWE without Vince McMahon, but we about to find out. And let me just say, I think it's funny that all this stuff is happening before I even turned 30. Like, I turned 29 this year, and I feel like within the past 4, maybe 5 years, I've seen so many historical things take place before I turned 30, and I guess now, I'm in for a ride. But yeah, power to those wrestlers that are still there, and I hope that they can find a way and navigate themselves through this change. But yeah, women in wrestling are owed a lot. and we're gonna take it. So that's all for news and gossipish, and now we're gonna go into my SummerSlam predictions. All right, so this is where I'm going to talk about SummerSlam predictions. This is a huge deal because, of course, SummerSlam is sort of seen like as, of course, one of the big four pay-per-views with WrestleMania, Survivor Series, and the Royal Rumble. So SummerSlam is kind of like a reset towards the middle of the year, where some of the biggest feuds that took place before, during, and after WrestleMania, might have a little bit more of a blow off here. So basically, I'm going to give my predictions as to where these stories can go after, they lose or win or whatever. So I'm going to start by talking about, of course, the women's matches. So the SmackDown Women's Championship is on the line at SummerSlam, and that's, of course, being held by Liv Morgan, who cashed in, who became Miss Money in the Bank at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, but then proceeded to take advantage and cash in on bumped up Ronda Rousey, who had just defended her title against Natty, but then she cashed in on Ronda, kicked that bad knee, and won her first title in WWE, which was such a beautiful moment, so great, and all of the nice things. So now Ronda sort of wants her rematch because, of course, she believes that she could take down Liv Morgan, she could take down Liv Morgan fair and square now that she's not as injured as she once was. But Liv Morgan is sort of out to prove that she's way hungrier to keep the title than Ronda Rousey, because honestly, when you think about it, Ronda doesn't necessarily need, the SmackDown Women's title, because of course she's won it before, and then on top of that, it's just the fact that Ronda is very accomplished. Something that they made mention of a few weeks ago on SmackDown, not even just on SmackDown, but on After the Bell with Corey Graves, which is his podcast he has with Vic Joseph. They interviewed Liv Morgan, and Liv basically said that during Ronda Rousey's rise in the UFC as the women's bantamweight champion, Liv Morgan was a waitress at Hooters, while she was on the rise during her UFC career. But at the same time, it's like funny how now they're fighting each other, in wrestling. But Liv has sort of prided herself as being this person that really loves wrestling and has always loved wrestling since she was a child and wanted to be a champion even then, doing backyard wrestling with her brothers and stuff like that. So Liv needs to be champion in the sense that she is this underdog. She's this girl who's really had to work to prove herself and prove that she's good enough to be a champion. And now she's here, and she's not wanting someone like Ronda Rousey, who is a career champion, to sort of take it away. So as good as Ronda Rousey is, and as much as she likes to break arms and bend legs and stuff like that, I really believe Liv Morgan is going to come out the winner. I'm predicting that Liv Morgan is going to win at SummerSlam because she deserves to have, that big moment. Because every time I think about her in a big moment, I just can't help but think about her performance against Becky Lynch at Day One, at the very beginning of this year. And she did such a good job proving why she should be in contention for titles more often, that I almost feel like now that she has this title at SummerSlam, it would be a good opportunity for her, to fight and prove that she is, that she has staying power as a champion, and that she's not just going to be some underdog that gets ran over by Pitbull Ronda. And I love Ronda Rousey, don't get me wrong, I really love her, and I've loved her since before she came to WWE, but I really feel like this is Liv's time. So yeah, I'm predicting that Liv's going to win. Also in the women's category, we have the Raw Women's Championship on the line between Bianca Belair, the EST of WWE, and the all-around that girl, versus Becky Lynch, Miss I beat you in 26 seconds last year, and that's the only accomplishment I can hold on to. So I'm predicting Bianca Belair is going to beat her in maybe 15 seconds. I know that's a pretty bold statement to make, but honestly, I really feel like Bianca might be at the point where she's just had enough of Becky Lynch. It's just like she it's like, Becky, all you did, I mean, you may have worked your way back, towards the title picture, but at the same time, you got beat by Bianca at WrestleMania after you came out with an entrance in a white SUV. On top of that, you had all this entrance and fall brawl and stuff like you were in a Marvel movie or something, and you came out there, and then you claimed that Bianca had the advantage because she came out there with an army. Mind you, that's not an army. That was the Texas Southern University Marching Band. And you said that she had the unfair advantage and that you would have won regardless. No, ma'am. Bianca beat you at WrestleMania. She beat you. She beat you, okay? And it's just so sad that she wants to hang on to the whole 26 seconds thing that happened last year. My thing is, even after last year, you were SmackDown Women's Champion, and then you were given the Raw Women's Championship because of the draft or whatever. And I mean, that was cool and all, but at the same time, and yeah, you had really good matches, in between your time as champion. You fought Lita, you fought Liv Morgan, like I previously mentioned. It's like you had all this great stuff going on, but it's like you wanted to send Bianca Belair to the back of the line and stuff like that. And when she worked her way back up to you, you had all these excuses. And then even after you lost, you felt like, you had excuses and you were sad or whatever, and you were angry, and for every big opportunity you had and somebody else won, you were having your moments where you were crying and, why is this happening to me? This is supposed to be the comeback story, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, nobody's believing this comeback story because you don't need a comeback story, because you keep talking about how you're the underdog. You're not the underdog anymore. You are what CM Punk called John Cena. You have become the New York Yankees. You're the New York Yankees. You're the Los Angeles Lakers. You're the New England Patriots. That's who you are, Becky. But yet somehow or another, you keep trying to make it seem like you're the victim in this situation. You're not the victim, ma'am. And what's so sad is it's just like on Monday they got to fighting, and I'm going to talk about that later. But they got to fighting and everything, and it's just like, you're just always trying to make it seem like you're the girl that's being underestimated. No, ma'am, you are not the girl that's being underestimated anymore. That was 2016, Becky. Or at least 2018, Becky, or whatever. Like, back then you were underestimated before you turned heel and became the man. But you're not underestimated anymore. You're that girl who you kept telling everybody that they should be treating you like. But then the minute anybody else gets any shine, you get mad. You're also, it's like, she talks so much stuff about bullying, about people bullying her and all this other stuff. But my thing is, you bully other folks, and you were talking about what Bianca did to your hair, and she cut my hair, and she tried to take my spirit. No, ma'am, that was a direct result of you trying to cut her hair. It's like, you can bully everybody else, but let anybody meet you with that same energy, you want to get mad and cry and throw a hissy fit and call people the B word with your bony behind. Whatever. Okay. Stop it. Just stop it, ma'am. It's like she's so desperate to cling to any relevancy that she's just trying so hard. Like, she tries so hard to cling to Bianca Belair, because she knows that if she's always feuding with Bianca Belair, then people will always have her name in their mouth. And I'm not here for it. I'm sick of it. I've been sick of Becky Lynch ever since she beat Bianca in 26 seconds, which was trash. Trash booking. It was absolutely trash. Beating her in 26 seconds was trash, but at least at the end of the day, Bianca worked her way back up to the top instead of thinking she was, entitled to the top. Because when you're the EST, you just show and prove everybody why you're the EST. You don't think it's just supposed to be handed to you. That's the distinct difference between you and Bianca. So with that in mind, Bianca has a lot to prove here, because in the sense that she has already beaten her on her grand stage. So now she's going to have to beat her again on another grand stage where she was embarrassed, in her home state at that. So you know what? I hope that Bianca beats her behind and retains her Raw Women's Championship, because Becky no longer needs the title. She just needs to keep her name out of Bianca's mouth and keep her hands off of Bianca's hair and just leave her alone. I don't care if she is a 4-horsewoman or whatever. I'm sick of her. Bianca time. It's Bianca time. Bianca's retaining. And that's all I have to say about that. Because I'm sick of Becky. Get somebody else to fight Bianca for a title. I'm tired of Becky. I'm tired of her thinking she's just entitled to stuff. Like, no. Just no. It's obnoxious. It's getting on my nerves. Okay. Yeah, it's like, you did all this stuff. You came back. You had a baby. Okay, great. That's fantastic. Fantastic that you did that. But nobody's obligated to give you anything in this life. You're not entitled to anything. But whatever. Anyway, now to the men. So we have the WWE Undisputed Tag Team Championship match with Jeff Jarrett as a special guest referee with the Usos and the Street Profits. Now, this past Friday on SmackDown, yesterday, the Usos got into it with the Street Profits, and one of the Usos, I believe it was Jay, kicked Jeff Jarrett in the face. And honestly, I feel like that's not going to work out for them in their favor. That is if, of course, they don't try to win with shenanigans or Roman doesn't try to help them or something. But I'm predicting that the Street Profits will win the Undisputed Tag Team titles simply because they deserve it. And honestly, I just don't know what else they could do if they were to lose, because they do have an axe to grind, because they did try to win, but then Montez's shoulders wasn't on the mat, so they're trying to win it fair and square. And it's funny to watch Jeff Jarrett kind of just, fuss at them like a dad that's trying to get his out of control children together. But I really feel like the Street Profits are going to win because they just deserve to be the undisputed, champions. And I'm also more interested to see what the dynamic will be like in the bloodline when they don't have all the titles. That would be really interesting. So I'm predicting the Street Profits. Now for the United States Championship match between Bobby Lashley and Theory, Bobby Lashley is going to win, and Theory just needs to sit his tail down somewhere. Because it just feels like he's fighting with everybody. He has beef with everybody. It's Theory versus everybody. He's got beef with Bobby Lashley because he wants his United States title back. He's got beef with Dolph Ziggler, who keeps attacking him every Monday. He's got beef with Roman Reigns. He's got beef with Brock Lesnar. He low-key has beef with Paul Heyman, but Paul Heyman might be using him for some type of dastardly plan or for something else. He just got beef with everybody. And it's just like, son. And then he got beef with Drew McIntyre because Drew McIntyre claymored him yesterday. Like, he just been a fight. Like, Theory just got beef with everybody. And honestly, I feel like that's going to bite him in his behind. So, and considering he's been running around with the Money in the Bank briefcase, and that's been his biggest priority, to try to get into all the champions' heads or whatever, I feel like his head's not going to be in the game for the United States title. He's going to lose, and he's not going to get that title, and Bobby Lashley is going to retain. Now, of course, since he has that briefcase, he could very well cash it in later, but, it might be an unsuccessful cash in. You just never know. But either way, Bobby Lashley is going to win because Theory's head is not in the game for that title. His head is in the game for the other titles. But we'll see. I'm also predicting, and there's a no DQ match between the Mysterios and the Judgment Day. This is hard because I know a lot of people think that Dominic could very well turn on Rey Mysterio. And my thing is, he didn't do it Monday when everybody thought he was going to do it. But my thing is, why do we want this father and son duo to turn on each other? Like, why do we want that to happen? Are we just mean people who just want to see family infighting because we're crazy? Like, why do we want that to happen? It's almost like when Kofi went on his singles run, and also when Big E went on his singles run, we were always thinking the idea of, the New Day might break up or one might turn on the other. But then again, that's a very old mindset to have in wrestling. Like, yeah, partners turned on each other all the time back in the day, but maybe it's a new day. Maybe, no pun intended, maybe it's a new day, and maybe, Rey and Dominic won't turn on each other. I mean, they're father and son. Like, Dom calls Rey Jefe. He calls him boss all the time. Like, they love each other so much. Like, why would you want them to turn on each other? Like, it's just so terrible. I feel like that would break my heart if that happened. But, I don't know. But I'm predicting that the Mysterios will win, even though they did beat them Monday. I'm predicting that either they will win or maybe the Judgment Day will utilize their third person to win. Or maybe Edge will come back and help the Mysterios win. And then Edge will beef with the Judgment Day. Like, and then make yet another group thing, and then Edge will be on Team Mysterio, and then the Judgment Day will like have their team or whatever, and then they'll fight again at some point. I don't know, that'll be interesting. But yeah, I feel like that one's a little bit weird for me to predict, but yeah, that'll be interesting. That's kind of hard because they did fight them Monday. I think it'll be maybe the Judgment Day might win, but it'll be a lot of other shenanigans going on. Judgment Day might win. I don't know. But then we have Pat McAfee versus Happy Corbin. I am looking forward to this matchup because Pat McAfee has energy and thunderbolts, lightning bolts in his soul. And he's ready to make an example out of Happy Corbin, who just keeps dissing him. Like, even yesterday, he bought a ticket and was throwing popcorn at him, and then they wanted to get to fighting and everything, and then they had to separate them. But then freaking Happy Corbin, you know, got loose from security and kicked him in his privates. And I'm just like, bro, what are you doing? And they be acting like Pat really has no right to fight him. But I'm just saying, like, okay, he's a commentator, but y'all know this man can fight. Let him fight for himself. Like, because you know, in real life, if somebody is jumping on you or if somebody's throwing stuff at you, you ain't just gonna sit there and take it. You gonna run up on them and beat their behind. So why are y'all making it seem like Pat has to do this? But then the part that I love was the fact that after Pat got kicked in the balls, he got up during commercial break and got in his chair and continued to commentate for the rest of the night. Pat is different. He is a different man. He's a different breed, and I love it. So, I'm predicting that Pat McAfee is going to win because Happy Corbin really doesn't necessarily need to win this match. And he just needs somebody to teach him a lesson. And considering they have history together because they played on the same football team, like, that plays into it too in a very unique way. And I love that. So I'm definitely predicting that Pat McAfee is gonna win. Then we have the match between Logan Paul and The Miz. I'm predicting Logan Paul. I know I really don't necessarily like Logan Paul as a person, but as a wrestler, he is pretty stellar. But I feel like him and The Miz is going to give him a good showing, but I really feel like Logan Paul is going to win. And that's just kind of how I feel about that. I'm not as I'm excited about that match, but I'm not as excited about it as I am Happy Corbin and Pat, but you know, we'll see. And then lastly, we got the last man standing match between Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Whew. Hopefully this is the last time both of these men will ever fight, because I feel like I've been watching them fight my whole life. Even though they all haven't been. Brock Lesnar's been in the company a lot longer than Roman Reigns, but I really feel like I've been watching them fight my whole life. But either way, I hope this is the last time they fight each other for a minute. I think this is going to be a really rough one. It's going to be a really tough one, because when it's last man standing, that means you can fight all over the ring. There's no DQ, there's no screw jobs, none of that. You just beat each other until you can't get up after 10 seconds. So I feel like Roman is going to win somehow. But then I also feel like Theory is going to try and cash in. But then at the same time, I also share the same sentiment as Janelle from HR on Jobber Tears. Paul Heyman is the X factor in all of this. Like, Paul really is the X factor in all of it, because they showed him backstage talking to Theory at SmackDown last night, and he was talking to him as if, you know, he was like, I can see your future and how bright it is and all this other stuff. And I'm just like, huh? You know? And with Paul Heyman sort of playing Theory, he could also be playing Roman, but then he could also be playing Brock too. It's almost like he could be a triple double agent for all three of these people. Like, it's just sort of hard to tell. Like, I feel like it's gonna be something really crafty that's gonna take place tonight, and it's gonna be real interesting. And I'm ready for my mind to be blown. I'm ready. Like, I'm really ready. I'm really excited for that. But I feel like Roman's going to win, but there's, you know, I'm ultimately predicting that the tribal chief is going to win the match. But something crazy is going to happen that's going to blow our brains off, you know, off the surface of the earth. So yeah. That's my predictions for SummerSlam. Tell me your predictions. Of course, I know it's kind of late for that, but you know, you can tell me, you know, what your predictions were, you know, after SummerSlam, you know, happens and stuff like that. So, you know, we can talk about it. We can address it on social media and stuff like that and just chop it up. But yeah, SummerSlam is going to be lit. I'm excited for it. It's going to be cool. And also to Stephanie Hypes, on Twitter, shout out to her. I love how she said that SummerSlam has like 2 women's matches for titles and doesn't have any non-title women's matches. And I'm just like, oh, that is really interesting, because they really don't put that much stock into women's stories without a title. And with the women's tag titles, you know, on hiatus, or, you know, they've just been stripped off of them and they've just disappeared. Like, maybe creatively Triple H could, you know, turn those tag titles into yet another singles title for the women, because that would be cool, and a little bit more easier to handle from a production standpoint. Or, you know, just put more emphasis into women's stories that doesn't have anything to do with the title the same way you do the men. You know, keep that same energy. But yeah, shout out to Stephanie Hypes, you know, for that observation. Very astute and awesome. You're awesome. So yeah, that's the end of this segment. And now I'm going to go into what I liked in wrestling this week. Okay, so I was sitting with my friends one day and they asked me, Stephanie, how do you record your podcast? And I said, with the Anchor app on my phone. And they were like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, it's that simple. It is absolutely free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone and your computer. And it will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from the podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's got everything you need to make a podcast in one place. They even have classes and stuff that you can listen to that will give you all kinds of good tips on what you need to do in order to make the best podcast. So if you want to do this, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That's anchor.fm, or download the free Anchor app to get started. All right, so I'm going to talk about what I liked in wrestling this week. So of course, you know, you are free to tell me what you liked in wrestling this week on social media, as you see me sharing clips throughout the week. You know, of course, next week, well, actually today, and then next week, you know, as wrestling, you know, takes place after the events of SummerSlam and everything else. So yeah. So I'm going to start with Monday Night Raw. Of course, this was held in Madison Square Garden in New York City, which is the mecca of wrestling. A lot of historic moments happened in Madison Square Garden. So I guess this was really no different. It was really cool. Madison Square Garden is a place I hope to visit at some point, you know, but New York is really big. So one can only hope and dream that that'll happen at some point. But yeah, it was really cool. In the audience, you had really amazing members of the audience. Like, number one, Victor Perry's Wrestling Club kids. Shout out to y'all. It was so good to see you guys go to your wrestling events. I'm not sure if it was some of you guys' first wrestling events or if you guys been to wrestling events before or whatever, but it was so good that you guys were able to go with Victor Perry. Shout out to him, friend of the pod. Like, I'm so happy that those kids were able to have that moment. I don't know if you've seen it on social media, but one of his kids literally freaked the F out when they saw Becky Lynch and started jumping up and down and screaming and called her, "Yes, Rebecca! Yes, Rebecca!" And I was just like, oh my God. I know I have very strong feelings that I did just share about Becky Lynch, but I will not take away a child's joy, and that was really great. It was really funny. And I really appreciated it because that's how excited I get for certain people even now, as a 28-year-old. So I just loved seeing those kids there with their signs and the pictures that they took and how much fun they had. So it was really great to see them there. So also I would like to say Victor Perry is still doing his fundraiser to send his wrestling club kids to WrestleMania next year in California. So if you haven't already donated to that, please go on everywhere that he has, at Wallflower Perry, on Instagram and on Twitter. Please find him so you can find a link to donate to that fund to send those kids to WrestleMania. They absolutely deserve it. They've been doing all kinds of great wrestling work, writing essays about wrestling, doing their own little wrestling promos and stuff like that, talking smack to each other. It is beautiful and it is hysterical, and they deserve it all. So please donate to them. Please, because they deserve it. Also, another esteemed member of the Raw audience this past Monday was Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is, of course, the creator of Hamilton, an American Musical, and In the Heights. And, of course, he's done music for Moana and more recently for Encanto, which is an amazing Disney movie with amazing music that he did. So he's amazing. I just love him so much. I love him. I just love Lin-Manuel Miranda. So seeing him in the audience for Raw was just an amazing moment. And then funny enough, I actually live tweeted for Raw, and I tweeted, what if Lin-Manuel Miranda actually directed an episode of Raw and SmackDown? And somebody retweeted it and said that the promos would be raps, would be songs and hip-hop songs and songs that people would sing, and the action in the ring would be dancing. And honestly, I can't unsee that, but I still feel like it would be cool regardless. I'm a theater nerd, a musical theater nerd, so I would love it. But either way, that was cool to see him there. Shout out to him, maybe one day I could try and get him on my show. That would be cool. Lin-Manuel. Yeah, that would be interesting. So another part of Raw that I really liked was the fact that at the very beginning, Miz and Logan Paul was fighting, fighting like they was fighting in the streets, to start off the show. And I'm just like, dang. So they coming in hot tonight. It's crazy because you were kind of going into Raw wondering how it was going to flow, considering Vince McMahon is gone and now stuff and now that Triple H is in charge, you're wondering what's going to happen. But then it started with a fight. We're just like, ooh, all right, now that's what we're going to do. So that was interesting. I also loved something else that I absolutely loved about Raw, and it's probably my favorite moment of the week, was Roman Reigns owning Theory. Oh my God, I've watched this so many times on TikTok where Theory decided to get in the ring and interrupt the bloodline giving their speeches or whatever. And Roman, gave Paul the microphone because he said, I don't feel like talking anymore. And I'm just like, yeah, dang, do you know how crazy you have to be to tell somebody you don't feel like talking no more and ask you to speak for them? Do you know how powerful you got to be to ask for something like that? And then Theory came out there, bragging and jaw-jacking back and forth to them, talking about how he's got, look at me, I'm Mr. Money in the Bank, blah, blah, blah. But Roman invited him in the ring and said, look, come in the ring real quick. And so he came in the ring and he stood in front of him, and Roman was like, Paul, I think what he needs is a little bit of counsel. I think he needs a wise man. So he said, okay, I'll be that wise man for you for tonight. And so Roman said, look around you. I want you to really analyze the situation. Because Theory's in that ring by himself with 4 other people in the bloodline. The Usos were there, Roman's there, Paul is there. So he was just like, I want you to really analyze this situation. Your daddy's not here anymore to protect you. And the entire crowd, including myself, went, oh, it was such a sick burn. Excuse me? Roman came out swinging. Your daddy isn't here anymore. And y'all know who Theory's daddy was. Y'all know. It was Vince. And it's just he ain't here no more. That means that Theory can't do whatever he wants to do anymore. Even though he's still walking around, like an obnoxious, child with that briefcase. He ain't got his protection no more. So that means he is fair game for everybody, which he has been over the course of this week. He's been getting beat up by the Usos, beat up by Roman, beat up by Drew McIntyre, beat up by Brock. Like, this child just can't catch a break. And that was hysterical. That was the sickest burn I've heard on Monday Night Raw in a long time. And I was just like, God dang, Roman, you just don't miss. You just don't miss. Ugh. And then I also love the fact that Dolph Ziggler continues to antagonize Theory, and he gave him yet another super kick. So basically, Theory, everybody hates Theory. It's kind of like everybody hates Chris, except it's everybody hates Theory. Whoever owns Everybody Hates Chris, don't sue me. Yeah. So also on Raw, I loved Rey Mysterio's 20th WWE anniversary celebration with his son. I loved how he came out there, did his entrance with Dominic and gave his speech and everything and talked about everything that he's been able to do and all of his accomplishments and stuff like that. But the part where he almost had me messed up was when he started talking about Eddie Guerrero and how he misses him every day. And I'm just like, man, don't do this to me. Don't make me cry. It's like I had already cried like Saturday when they released the Black Panther Wakanda Forever trailer. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. Like, I sobbed after that. And so I was not in the mood to sob again. So I didn't sob this time. But either way, it was nice to see him make mention of him. Because you could tell that made Ray and Dominic very emotional. Because they were all very close. So I can only imagine, since Rey Mysterio is still, wrestling at a prime rate now, even being towards the age of 40, I wonder how good of a wrestler Eddie would have been at this point. He probably would have still been fire too, and they probably would have been wrestling each other for the rest of their lives. And oh my god, and it would have been great, and we would have ate it up. We would have ate it. But God had other plans, so it's all right. Rest in peace to Eddie Guerrero, and much respect to his family, because they have to live with it a lot harder than we do. So yeah, that was a nice touch, and I just loved everybody showing love to him. And I loved the video package they made for Ray, showing him when he debuted on SmackDown in 2002 and had that Titantron which had all of his masks on it, and with his old song like "Who's That Jumping Out the Sky?" R-E-Y Mysterio, here we go. That was my song. That's still my song, and I will play that song now. But yeah, I just love seeing all of his triumphs, even showing him winning the Royal Rumble that year in 2006, and then winning the World Heavyweight title at WrestleMania and doing it in honor of Eddie and coming out there in the lowrider. And then when he came out there in his Aztec gear, that gear is goated, and I'm just so happy that they showed that some love, because that headdress, oh god, it was so cool. I loved it. I love it. I love it. I love cultural wear. It's so great. But yeah. And then speaking of Rey Mysterio and his celebration, after he won his match against the Judgment Day, his tag team match with Dom against the Judgment Day, they both went back there, with their cake and went to celebrate with their family, because Ray's wife was there, and then his daughter Aaliyah was there, and they were all back there celebrating, having fun, hoo-hoo, and all the stuff. And then guess who crashes the party? Rhea Ripley. She comes in, crashes the party. Ray is trying to open his present that his daughter got for him, because apparently she found the original gear that he wore for Halloween Havoc when he faced Eddie Guerrero, because if watch that match for clear skin, it's so good. But yeah, and so she came in, and then Aaliyah stepped up to her, and then Rhea mushed her in her face, and then they started fighting, and then they all started fighting outside, and then the Judgment Day proceeded to attack Ray and Dominic some more even after their match. And I was just like, y'all so disrespectful. And then what makes it worse is the fact that Damian Priest is in Judgment Day, and he's Puerto Rican, and so basically you're a part of the Hispanic umbrella. And my thing is, sweetheart, Rey Mysterio walked so you can run. Why are you doing this to him? It's just so stupid. It just makes me mad. But whatever. And then what's so funny is everybody on Twitter, including Buddy Matthews, was being petty because they were sharing the pictures of Aaliyah and Rhea Ripley fighting. And of course, during the pandemic Thunderdome era, Aaliyah and Buddy Matthews had their little romance going on screen. And then their relationship just kind of faded off into, whatever. And then Buddy Matthews left WWE, went to AEW. And now he's supposedly dating Rhea Ripley. And he's just like, haha, they're fighting. And I'm just like, oh my God, you're terrible. But yeah, y'all crazy. It was funny. But a lot of people are speculating that maybe either today and they speculated that maybe on Monday that Dom would turn on Ray. But they're also predicting that he could turn on Ray like tonight. And I'm just like, why do y'all want this to happen? Let them have a healthy father-son relationship. Please, we need more of those. So yeah, I don't know, but I won't get into that any further than I already have. But it was good to see Ray get his flowers though. Congratulations to him. I feel like I've been loving him my whole life. But yeah. So then I also love that Bianca and Becky got to fighting after they were interrupting each other, for their promos or whatnot. But the thing I hated was the fact that Becky grabbed her hair, and apparently she grabbed it and yanked it so hard that Bianca's real braid that was connected to the long braid was showing. And I was like, you know what? Now she got to kill her. She got to kill Becky now, because you do not touch a black woman's hair, and you most definitely don't mess it up either. So you know what? I hope that Bianca destroys Becky in 15 seconds, like I said during my SummerSlam predictions. Because you just don't do that. I also love the segment with the Usos and Jeff Jarrett and the Street Profits backstage. They were fussing at each other, and it was just really funny to see Montez sort of make a weird na boo boo face at them. So it was just really funny. And I also loved Seth freaking Rollins' black sparkly suit. Oh my God, it was so cute. Like, his designer, I follow him and Becky's designer on Instagram, and I can't ever remember his name to save my life, but he be going ham and giving them amazing clothes. And I'm gonna need for him to open up a brand for the girls, because I want a version of that suit. It's so cute. Like, if you're gonna wear a suit, the least I feel like if you're gonna wear a suit, don't make the suit boring, make it cute. And that suit was cute. So yeah. But then Seth was wearing the suit and attacking Riddle, and Riddle is injured, so I guess Seth doesn't have anybody to possibly face at SummerSlam. So I feel like it's either going to be an open challenge, or maybe he just won't fight at all. I don't know, but Seth might have to fight somebody, but we'll see how that goes. So that's everything that I like from Raw. Now, moving on to NXT 2.0. I really liked Zoe Stark telling her the story of her injury, because she got injured at Halloween Havoc last year, and she was supposed to be out for maybe close to a year, because she tore her ACL and her MCL off the bone. And oh my God, I just can't even imagine that. Like, that just sounds like it's just so painful. And I just admire the fact that she rehabbed and did her physical therapy so much so to the point to where she came back in 8 months, when she was supposed to come back in in a year or more. And I admire that work ethic in her. And of course, she was celebrating the fact that she is now the #1 contender for the NXT Women's title that's being held by Mandy Rose of Toxic Attraction. So in the midst of that, Cora Jade decided to come out there and interrupt her. But something that I love this entire episode is just the fact that everybody collectively took their turn and took their time reading Cora Jade for filth, for how she threw away the women's tag team title in the trash can like Alundra Blaze, who we'll get to in a minute. And even Zoe Stark said, look, you threw that title in the trash, and that title means a lot to me because, she won that title with Io Shirai. So how dare you throw that in the garbage? And then basically Toxic Attraction came out there to roast Zoe Stark and Cora Jade. So basically it's just like everybody hates Cora now. because Cora just did the worst thing you could ever do, which was stab a best friend in the back, attack her, and then attack her even more, and made her lose her women's title opportunity that she won in the breakout tournament because you were jealous. And it's just so sad. It's really sad. But at the end of the day, Roxanne bounced back. She came back and proceeded to beat the crap. Well, she didn't really get a chance to beat the crap out of Cora, because Cora ran away like a scalded dog. And so at the end of all of that, after everybody took their turns roasting Cora Jade, like Roxanne and like Zoe, Roxanne had a segment backstage where she was saying that she, wanted the tag titles to be defended, with honor. So she relinquished her titles. She relinquished her title and the other title to Alundra Blaze, who is, of course, infamously known as the woman who threw away the WWF Women's title on an episode of WCW. And she threw it away on WCW Nitro back in the day. So she came back as a full circle moment to sort of talk about the importance of titles and, and how she made a mistake back then and how that really wasn't the best way to do things. But she announced that there's going to be a fatal 4-way match to determine who's going to take the vacant women's tag team titles next week. And the participants are going to be Team KC Squared, that's Kaden Carter and Katana Chance, Yulisa and Valentina Feroz, Yulisa Leon, there we go, and Valentina Feroz, I think not Kiana James, Ivy Nile and Tatum Paxley, and of course Toxic Attraction, Gigi and JC, who kept trying to get Alundra Blaze to give them the titles, and she was like, no, y'all gonna have to fight for this. So she refused for that to happen. So that's gonna be interesting, and I'm really excited for that. And it's official that Zoe Stark is challenging Mandy Rose at NXT Heatwave. That's gonna be August the 16th. So yeah, that's gonna be cool. Also, there's this weird rumor that NXT is supposed to be having some type of special to counter program AEW's All Out on Sunday, September 4th, which is my 29th birthday. But that hasn't been announced as of yet, so we just got to wait and see for that one. But either way, I think that's interesting. But like I said, it's a rumor. Also, something else I liked from NXT was just Wesley just being his best self, even though he keeps getting bullied by Grayson Waller and Trick Williams, who bullied him some more. And it's just like, bruh, Trick, what is your problem with him? Stop it. And also, let me just say that during Wesley and Grayson Waller's match, when it looked like Wesley was trying to get the upper hand in the match, Waller, after coming in from the count out, Waller jumped between the ropes and hit his returning rolling cutter finisher. And that finisher is really cool, even though I know I cannot stand Grayson Waller, and even the fans couldn't stand him either because they were chanting Aussie asshole at him, and it was just really funny. Sorry, I'm cursing, but it was just really funny because he's just so obnoxious and rude. But I'm really ready for Wesley to throw real hands with Trick Williams, because Trick Williams just keeps being crafty or whatever, and it's almost like he doesn't believe in his power as a wrestler. Sir, believe in your power. You don't have to cheat in order to get in somebody's head. I know you're being a heel, I know you're being a bad guy, and I know you think you're fine or whatever, but at the same time, fight him straight up. Fight Wesley straight up. Or maybe he's just doing that because he knows he can't beat Wesley straight up. I don't know. But I'm tired of watching Wesley lose. I'm ready for him to win something, dang it. I'm ready for him to find peace. So let him find peace. And then something else that I liked on NXT was the fact that Wendy Chu is now vowing to make Tiffany Stratton's life worse, and I'm glad, because Tiffany eliminated her from that battle royal that they had for the number one contendership, and I was upset about it. I was just like, you know what, Tiffany, get your clueless mean girls looking behind on somewhere. But whatever, we'll see how that happens. So that's everything I like from NXT 2.0. But now I'm going to go into the NXT UK side of things, because I am on assignment to watch NXT UK now, because Women's Wrestling Talk, the number one women's wrestling show on the planet, has an after show for NXT 2.0 in UK, which I host with Katrina Blake of In Cat We Trust. So I want to talk about the stuff I like from that show, because that show actually deserves a lot more attention than it gets. So I'm definitely encouraging you guys, please watch NXT UK. If you can't watch it in the afternoon on Thursdays when it first comes on, then watch it after, it streams, because it's just 1 hour, but it's really good though. It's really good. I enjoy it. So something that I loved from NXT UK was Tyler Bate vowing his revenge on Trent Seven, because if you may or may not know, Trent Seven freaking turned on Tyler Bate because Tyler Bate wasn't trying to cheat to win the NXT UK tag titles, or to retain those titles, in their match against Brooks Jensen and Jox Briggs. And that made him mad. So since, the good old country boys won the title, no shade, won the tag team titles, like, Trent Seven was upset, and he basically broke up Mustache Mountain. And he attacked Tyler Bate, and he was basically talking trash about it and bragging about it. But clearly Tyler Bate wasn't taking too kindly to it, and he ran up on him, but then, Trent Seven ran away. So Tyler Bate wants to get his pound of flesh, and he wants revenge on him, because he said, look, I love you like a brother, but you betrayed me. So now it's time to pay. And I'm ready for him to pay, boo. I'm ready for this match. Get him, Tyler. Get him together. So I love it. I also like the press conference on NXT UK that Meiko Satomura had with Saray, because next week they're supposed to be fighting for the NXT UK women's title, and Meiko has been champion for a while now, since she beat Kaylee Ray / Alba Fire for it, and she's kind of been running through everybody, but Saray, respectfully wanted to challenge her, and she said during this press conference, which I really love. I love the fact that they spoke in Japanese almost the entire time, because I just love that form of representation. So Saray said in Japanese that, even though she respects Meiko Satomura, it's her time is, up. And Saray basically said that I'm sunrise and that Meiko is sunset. And then Meiko said, look, a lot of people have tried to challenge me and they've given it a good effort, but they haven't won, and nothing's going to change. I'm going to be her. And so after they talked at each other, they turned around and did the face-to-face pose that they like to do for press conferences in all sports. Well, not all sports, but all combat sports. Let's say that. Saray was looking at Meiko like she was scared of her, because Meiko was staring a hole in her head, and I was just like, oh my God. It was so funny to look at Saray kind of look so scared. Like, I've never seen her look so, terrified like that. But I feel like this match is going to be good between these two girls, so I'm really pumped for it. Then plus you have Saray low-key wanting to challenge Mandy for the NXT women's title too. So it's like Saray trying to come for all the titles in NXT, but I'm not mad at her. Go ahead and do it then. And then I also liked that Shaw Samuels is losing all of his clothes from his loss of a bet, because he bet on Noam Dar. Remember him? Because Noam Dar lost his NXT UK Heritage Cup Championship to a member of Gallus, and he bet money, but he has ran out of money to give people, so now he's giving people clothes and shoes and jewelry, and it's so sad. He looked homeless, and it's just like, dang. That's why you only bet on sure things, guys. If you're gonna bet on anything, bet on something that you know is absolutely sure is gonna happen. That's why I can't take the risk of gambling. Like, I like having my money too much. I work too hard for it, man. Like, give it. But either way, whatever. Then, of course, I also like the female match that they had between Blair Davenport and Amal, the French Hope. I love that Blair Davenport's finisher is a Falcon Arrow. Like, that's really cool. And of course, if you're up on the indies and if you love Kenny Omega, that was his thing. So it's really good to see a woman do it. It's a fresh change of pace, and I love Amal, and I hate that Blair Davenport came back from her injury and was talking so much crap about Amal. So I want Amal and her to fight maybe one more time, but we'll see. And that's pretty much all that I liked from NXT UK, but please check it out if you haven't already. It's really good. So moving on to what I loved about SmackDown. One personal thing I loved about SmackDown is the fact that this episode came on my 10th anniversary of being in a relationship with my boyfriend, Jacqueline McCoy. Shout out to you, my love. I was wondering whether or not we should watch wrestling, but my boyfriend was like, look, wrestling is the reason why we're together. We're contractually obligated to watch wrestling. So I was like, okay, fine. So we did. So we did, and it was nice. It was nice, like it always is, to watch wrestling with him, of course. So yeah, yesterday was our 10th anniversary. Thank you for all the well wishes, because I did post a lot of pictures from yesterday. So thank you for all the well wishes, and all the love shown, for our love. It's great. So yeah, one of my favorite things about SmackDown, from the show perspective, was seeing Shotzi beat Aaliyah, which I thought was really interesting considering Aaliyah's been beefing with Lacey Evans, and Lacey has just been refusing to fight Aaliyah because she doesn't like the interaction that she gets from the crowd, because she feels like the crowd should show her more respect just because of everything that she's gone through and how she served the country or whatever. And you know, that's admirable and that is to be commended, but don't just think you're just obligated to people's respect. Like, in order to get respect, you have to show respect, and if she's not showing respect to the people, then the people aren't going to show her any respect. But you know, she don't want to hear that. So I think it's interesting that Aaliyah, you know, would go on to lose this match against Shotzi, simply because of the fact that I would think that she should look a little bit stronger, you know, going into her rivalry with Lacey Evans, but she wound up losing to Shotzi. And Shotzi was out there with her green hair and an amazing red outfit that made her look amazing, and then she had her stomach out, which shows her amazingly sick spider tattoo, and she was happy that she won. But then Ronda Rousey ruined that and basically beat up on her just because she was in a bad mood, and I was just like, girl, why are we... I'm all for making Ronda look strong heading into her match at SummerSlam. But why do you have to do it at the expense of Shotzi, who we barely see on television to begin with? That just didn't feel fair. It really didn't feel fair at all. Justice for Shotzi, dang it. Then I also loved on SmackDown how Paul Heyman took Theory to the side after his promo with Kayla. And I feel like it's feeding into the theory, no pun intended, that Janelle from HR said on Jobber Tears, where she feels like Paul could very well, you know, turn on Roman and Brock and then start managing Theory. I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird because towards the end of the night, you had Paul come out there and do his address, and then Brock Lesnar came out there and acted like he wanted to attack Paul Heyman, but then Theory came out there to protect him by beating up on Brock with the Money in the Bank case. But then Brock, you know, caught him, suplexed him, and beat up on Theory with the Money in the Bank case. So it's almost like, is Janelle's theory coming true? Like, did she make a premonition? Is Janelle psychic? Is she psychic? I don't know, but I love her. But oh my god, SummerSlam's gonna be a doozy. I'm so excited for that part. But something that I do want to address that I didn't like about SmackDown was just the continued bullying of the New Day. Like, what is going on with the New Day? It's like every time they get some type of advantage against the Viking Raiders, who are mean now, it's like somehow or another they get beat up and then they get re-injured and then somebody has to be off television. And it's just, oh my god. And then the fact that Xavier got beat up and injured with his ankle like that in his hometown. He's from Atlanta and they watched him get beat up and then attacked with shields and stuff. And I'm just like, what is going on with the New Day? It's like, I understand the New Day is incredibly accomplished and they've done a lot, you know, as a group or whatever, and even separately. But what's going on with them now? Why do they keep losing? Like, this is disappointing to me. And I feel like they've been in this sort of limbo ever since Big E got injured in March in Birmingham here. Like, I just hate it. I hate it so much. And I just think they just need to figure something out, because they're just making them look sad. And I don't want the New Day to look sad. I want them to look happy and successful. Black excellence. Dang. And the last thing I liked from SmackDown was the fact that Theory got claymored by Drew McIntyre, who has his sights set on whoever wins the last man standing match tonight at SummerSlam, because he is the number one contender, because he won the Donnybrook match against Sheamus at the beginning of SmackDown. So now he's got his fight at Clash at the Castle in Wales on the weekend of my birthday too. So yeah, that was a sick shot. So if you haven't seen that, please go back and look at it. So that's everything I liked from wrestling this week. Now, of course, if there's anything you liked from wrestling this week that you want to share, if you see any of these clips floating around on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, please tell me what you liked from wrestling this week or for the past couple of weeks, because I know I've been on break. And just, let me know how you feel about wrestling from during this post Vince McMahon era. It's crazy times we're living in, but it's still interesting nonetheless. And I'm hopeful, so that's all that matters. And I hope you're hopeful too. All right, so thank you for listening to the 101st episode of the Hardy Wrestling Podcast. As of course, you always know that you can follow me, your girl Stephanie Hardy, on Instagram and Twitter at Queen Steph Hardy. And you can follow the Hardy Wrestling Podcast on Instagram at Hardy Wrestling Podcast and on Twitter at Hardy Wrestle Pod. That's HARDYWRESTLEPOD. Because characters. So yeah, follow me on Twitter as well, and also follow me on Facebook. I have a Facebook page. It's called The Hardy Wrestling Podcast. So find it on Facebook, follow it, and you'll see all the posts and everything that I've got going on there. I also want to tell you guys to please continue to listen to the podcast everywhere you get your podcasts. And I want to say thank you to those who were very supportive of me and the podcast being nominated for Alabama Podcast of the Year at the Alabama Music Awards. Sadly, did not come out with the win, but the experience was really good. I was able to interview on a red carpet for the first time. As y'all saw me, I was dressed up in all green with my legs out. It was interesting. But people liked my outfit, and I loved my outfit, so that was great. And I met a lot of people in media and interviewed with them, and they thought it was really interesting because a lot of these places are very hip-hop, R&B centric stations and websites and stuff like that, and podcasts. So they were really interested in the idea, that I had a wrestling podcast, or as someone said, that they were interested in the idea that someone who looks like them had a wrestling podcast too. So I thought that was really interesting, and that blessed my spirit. So I was glad to talk to all of those people, in the media room, and I got to enjoy some of, the show and everything. But after it was all over, I walked on the red carpet again, because how many times do you get to walk on the red carpet if you're not famous? Not that many times. So I just wanted to bask in it for all it was worth. And then I went home. My boyfriend took me out to eat. We ate at our favorite restaurant, and we came back home and just chilled out. But I just felt like it was just a really great experience all around. And I'm honored and blessed that my podcast was nominated. I want to thank everybody who wrote in, all the reasons why they felt like the show should have been nominated, because without you, it wouldn't have happened. So thank you guys. Y'all know who you are. Thank you so much. It was such a fun experience, and hopefully I'll have it again. But I don't record this podcast necessarily for the awards. I do it because I love it and because I love wrestling, and there's so much to talk about. But then there's also so much to talk about in pop culture as well. So I'm thinking about, throwing some ideas around for maybe another extra show where I talk to other people, in pop culture about certain things outside of wrestling, because there are other things I'm passionate about, like Disney and cartoons and other random TV shows that I love to watch, and and Marvel movies, stuff like that as well, but I don't know, I'm still throwing that idea around. I'm not sure if I can, considering I'm on this show and I'm also on Women's Wrestling Talk as well. So I'm trying to maintain a work-life balance to a degree, but it'll still be, I feel like it'll be okay. Yeah, I'm just really excited for the future. I'm really hopeful for the future of wrestling as a whole. I'm hopeful for the health of it and for the health of its people. And I'm definitely hopeful for what I have to offer in terms of a person still finding their way in the wrestling landscape of things. So yeah, I'm just really glad with everything was going on, and I hope that you're being hopeful in your life as well. I know life can be really hard sometimes. You know, there's all kinds of dark stuff that tends to happen a lot with, you know, rights and policy and, you know, events and weather and so many different things that takes place. But I just hope that in the midst of it, and also in the midst of loss and stuff, but I hope that in the midst of that, you know, you're maintaining your mental health, your emotional health, and doing the very best you can, and doing the things that you love to do that, you know, makes you happy, and surrounding yourself with the people that you love, because that's always important, you know, during these, you know, times, because, you know, you just need to be a light in a dark world. And I just hope that you're doing that and doing the very best that you can. And even when you're not doing the best that you can, you're still doing the best that you can, because you just are. So yeah. So in the midst of that, this has been the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. I feel like I'm forgetting something. I don't know if I'm forgetting something. Lord have mercy. Yeah, okay. Well, never mind. Yeah. I just hope you're being the best person you can be. So with that in mind, this has been the Hardy Wrestling Podcast with your girl Stephanie Hardy. And until next time, bye y'all. Wait, no, I know what I forgot. Okay, I'm back. There is no bye yet. I know what I forgot to talk about. I forgot to talk about the fact that next month in Brooklyn, New York, Spice Spiegel is having her second annual Black Girl Magic event. And hopefully I'll be able to go, but it's basically an event in Brooklyn, New York that's going to feature the best in the very best in terms of Black women in independent wrestling. And I'm so excited that this is happening, you know, again. It happened last year for the first time, and I didn't know how expensive or how feasible it would be for me to go to New York until I actually tried it this year. And I'm just really glad that I was able, you know, to talk to Spice Spiegel, because I do have an interview with her, you know, when I was up there for Black WrestleFest. Please check it out. So I am excited that Black Girl Magic is happening, you know, in August. I believe it's happening August the 19th, Friday, August the 19th. And it's happening the same weekend as Jobber Slam 2, which is a Battle Club Pro event that's also being sponsored by Jobber Tears Podcast. You know, they're friends of the pod as well. So that's going on. So hopefully I'll be able to come back to New York. But if not, then I'll just send my love and well wishes for this thing. But I'm so happy that I did remember to say that, because oh my god, it's such a big deal, and I'm so happy I've met some of the movers and shakers who are going to be a part of it up there when I was up there in June. So hopefully I'll be up there to celebrate with them and to, you know, bask in the glow of Black Girl Magic in wrestling. So Jesus Christ, it's gonna be awesome. So please check out Black Girl Magic. Follow them on Instagram at Catch Magic, and I believe it's Catch Magic on Twitter too, but you'll have to look for them on Twitter. But please check that out, follow them, and figure out, you know, how you can be there if you're gonna be in the New York, Brooklyn area. Please support it. Buy your tickets. Go support us. Let's go. So yeah, with that in mind, now officially this is goodbye for real. Bye y'all.